The Treaty of Sycamore Shoals was in Tennessee. The Treaty of Sycamore Shoals was what spearheaded the creation of Kentucky. Transylvania colony was a short-lived extra-legal colony founded in 1775 by Richard Henderson. Richard Henderson is a badass, okay? I like Richard Henderson. He's a land speculator, and he's doing all this extra dealings and shit. But if it wasn't for Richard Henderson, there wouldn't be a Kentucky. He's the one that says, hey, okay, there's all this land out here. Let's go get it. Let's make it let's do something. So he kind of went outside the bounds of the law, but inside the bounds, he organized a lot of Indians to come in, and he signed the Treaty at Sycamore Shoals. Eventually, they undo all the land agreements, and it's a failed company because George Washington and everybody's all pissed off because he did it first, and they didn't like that shit. So, they got mad about it. But what can you do? Richard Henderson took off. He ran, but they didn't kill him. Richard Henderson's a judge from North Carolina, organized a land speculation company with a number of other prominent North Carolinians, originally called Richard Henderson and Company. Then it was changed to Louisa Company, then Transylvania. They wanted to establish a British proprietary colony by purchasing Kentucky land from the Cherokee, who settled much of the south and southeastern Kentucky areas and still claimed hunting rights in the abandoned Shawnee lands. So in March 1775, Richard Henderson met with more than 1,200 Cherokee at Sycamore Shoals, present-day Elizabethton in northeast Tennessee. Present were Cherokee leaders such as Attacullaculla and Aconastata, Attacullaculla and Aconastata. In the Treaty of Sycamore Shoals, also named as the Treaty of Watauga, dated March 14, 1775, Richard Henderson purchased all the land lying between the Cumberland River, the Cumberland Mountains, and the Kentucky River, and is situated south of the Ohio River. So most of an area at least half the size of Kentucky, 20 million acres. They probably thought that the recent British legal opinion, the Camden-York opinion, had made it legal, and so that's what they did. When they signed the treaty at Sycamore Shoals, Dragon Canoe was there. Dragon Canoe, who's a leader of the Second Cherokee Wars, the so-called Chickamauga Wars, the Dragon Canoes Wars. There's two Dragon Canoes Wars. There's the first Anglo-Cherokee Wars, or the war against the Redcoats. So they fought against the Redcoats too in the first Dragon Canoe War. The second Dragon Canoe War was the Chickamauga Wars. They also had to fight the Chickasaw, came to the side of the British and their Indian allies. Or wait, that's something else. Never mind. So Dragon Canoe, the Sycamore Shoals with Richard Henderson. He did not recognize it. Dragon Canoe did not sign Richard Henderson's Treaty of Sycamore Shoals. Canoe, Kentucky, which is in now Breathitt County. There's a city called Canoe, Kentucky. It's named after Dragon Canoe. The canoe was likely connected to Cherokee Chief Redbird, who has an entire national forest named after him in southeast Kentucky. Chief Redbird, also Chief Cardinal, because Redbird, what other Redbird in Kentucky would it be besides Cardinal? So Chief Redbird, Chief Cardinal, also known as Aaron Brock or Aaron Sizemore. So Chief Redbird went by a bunch of different names, Cherokee Chief. So you got Cherokee Chief Dragon Canoe, Cherokee Chief Redbird, and you also have Cherokee Chief Butterfly in southeast Kentucky and other Cherokee areas at the time. So he moved far and wide in Cherokee tribal areas. Upper, middle, lower Cherokee lands is still viewed as a Cherokee hero for his efforts to maintain Cherokee life. Dragon Canoe died March 1st, 1792 from exhaustion or an apparent heart attack after dancing all night celebrating the recent conclusion of alliance with the Muskogee and the Choctaw. So the Muskogee and the Choctaw had an alliance. He danced all night and then had a heart attack. He did not succeed in reaching an agreement with the Chickasaw. They're celebrating a recent victory by the Chickamauga War Band on the Cumberland River settlements. Legacy is considered by many to be the most significant Native American leader in the Southeast. Dragon Canoe is the most significant. Native American leader of the Southeast. Some historians consider him a role model for the younger Tecumseh, who was a member of a band of Shawnee living with the Chickamauga, Lower Cherokee, and taking part in their wars. He picked John Watts, also known as Young Tassel, as his successor as war chief. So John Watts, aka Young Tassel, was his successor war chief when he died. So that's Dragon Canoe. Dragon Canoe, he warned Daniel Boone, right, and Henderson, Richard Henderson. He says, "You have bought a fair land, but there's a cloud hanging over it. You will find its settlement dark and bloody." That's what he told Henderson and his North Carolina boys. So then they repudiated, governors of Virginia and North Carolina repudiated the Watauga Treaty. Henderson fled to avoid arrest. George Washington even spoke out against it. And that's all she wrote. Chickamauga Wars. So the Chickasaw came into the war on the side of the British and their Indian allies. In 1779, the colonist, George Rogers Clark, fucking devil, the genocidal maniac who Hitler loved, and a party of over 200 built Fort Jefferson and a surrounding settlement near the mouth of the Ohio River inside the Chickasaw hunting grounds. After learning of the trespass, the Chickasaw destroyed the settlement, laid siege to the fort, and began attacking settlers on the Kentucky frontier. Fort Jefferson. So Fort Jefferson is a town on the Mississippi River, about 1 mile south of Wickliffe, Kentucky, in southwestern Ballard County. The former town was founded in 1858. However, in 1779, George Rogers Clark built a stronghold of the same name at the intersection of the Mississippi and Ohio rivers in order to consolidate his forces and to control access to the Ohio. So Fort Jefferson, which is 1 mile south of Wickliffe, Kentucky. The Chickasaw came across it, right? They learned about George Rogers Clark building Fort Jefferson. They attacked it, began attacking the settlers on the Kentucky frontier. They continued attacking along the Cumberland River and into Kentucky the following year, marking their last raid together with Dragon Canoe's Cherokee. Former animosities of the Cherokee-Chickasaw War were forgotten in the face of the common enemy. So because George Rogers Clark built the Fort Jefferson, 1 mile south of Wickliffe, Kentucky, in southwestern Ballard County. Since George Rogers Clark and his 200 followers built Fort Jefferson, that's when the Chickasaw and the Cherokee united in their attack against the white man's encroach onto the frontier settlements. So your enemy's enemy is your friend. That type of mentality. So you have Cumberland settlements. Later that year, Robertson and John Donaldson traveled overland across the country along the Kentucky River, and they found Fort Nashborough at the French Salt Lick, which got its name, previously been the site of a French outpost called Fort Charleville. So they founded Fort Nashborough on the Cumberland River. This is a settlement that would become the city of Nashville, Tennessee. So Nashborough eventually becomes Nashville. It was the first of many such settlements in the Cumberland area, which subsequently became the focus of attacks by all the tribes in the surrounding region. Leaving a small group there, both returned east. Early in 1780, Robertson and a group of fellow Wataugans left the east down the Kentucky road, headed for Fort Nashborough. Meanwhile, Donaldson journeyed down to Tennessee with a party that included his family, intended to go across the mouth of Cumberland, then upriver to Fort Nashborough. Eventually, the group did reach its destination, but only after being ambushed several times. In the first encounter near Tuskegee Island, the Cherokee warriors under Bloody Fellow focused their attention on the boat in the rear whose passengers had come down with smallpox. There was only one survivor, who was later ransomed. The victory, however, proved to be a Pyrrhic one, Pyrrhic, for the Cherokee, as the ensuing epidemic wiped out several hundred in the vicinity. So they died of smallpox. They attacked some people with smallpox, and then they caught the shit themselves. Several miles downriver, beginning with the obstruction known as the Suck or the Kettle. I thought this was Kentucky shit. Alright, yeah, Chickamauga Wars. The Siege of Boonesborough. So the Siege of Boonesborough. This took place in September 1778 during the American Revolutionary War. 2 or 3 years, depending on when you want to start it. Chief Blackfish, the Shawnee war leader, who is allied with the British, is attacking the siege of Boonesborough, right, which is named after Daniel Boone. The second, established settlement in Kentucky, Harrodsburg being the first one. So, months before the battle, Blackfish had actually captured and adopted Daniel Boone, the founder of Boonesborough. Boone escaped the Shawnees in time to lead the defense of the settlement. So he escaped and he runs away when he finds out that they was going to go attack him. Then Boone was later court-martialed by his fellow officers who suspected him of having British sympathies. So he thought that he would have been actually with the Indians, and he wanted the settlements to be attacked, which is kind of insane. He's Boonesborough, so why wouldn't he want to defend his own settlement? But he did actually have British sympathies. He did go around wearing, Lord Dunmar's little, his pass or whatever the emblem they give him, or whatever medal, or I don't know how those royal people did stuff. Their papers. The settlement of Kentucky. Daniel Boone was captured by Blackfish. Unable to dislodge the Kentuckians from their fortified settlements, the Indians destroyed crops and killed cattle. Hoping that food shortages would compel the Kentucky settlers to leave. With the food supply at Boonesborough running low, the settlers needed salt to preserve what meat they had. In January 1778, Daniel Boone led a party of 30 men to the salt springs on the Licking River. February 7th, 1778, when Boone was out hunting meat for the expedition, he was surprised and captured by warriors led by Blackfish. So Daniel Boone's looking for meat. Then he was captured by Blackfish. Becomes Boone's party was greatly outnumbered. He convinced his men to surrender rather than put up a fight. Blackfish wanted to continue to burn Boonesborough and capture it since it was now poorly defended, but Boone convinced him that the women and children were not hardy enough to survive a winter trek as prisoners. Instead, Boone promised that Boonesborough would surrender willingly to the Shawnees the following spring. Boone was improvising, saying anything to keep the Shawnees from attacking Boonesborough. He did not have an opportunity to tell his men what he was doing, however, and many of them concluded that he had switched his loyalty to the British. Boone and his men were taken as prisoners to Blackfish's town in Chillicothe, Ohio. Per Shawnee custom, some of the prisoners were adopted into the tribe to replace fallen warriors. The remainder were taken to Detroit, where Indians received a bounty from Governor Hamilton, who was known as the hair buyer, Governor Hamilton, for each prisoner or scalp taken. Boone was adopted into a Shawnee family at Chillicothe, perhaps into the family of Chief Blackfish himself. He was given the name Sheltowee, meaning big turtle. Like most of the other adoptees, Boone was watched closely, but he eventually escaped on June 16, 1778, when he learned that Blackfish was preparing to return to Boonesborough with a large force. Boone eluded his captors and raced home, covering 160 miles to Boonesborough in 5 days. Upon his return, some of the men expressed doubts about Boone's loyalty, since after surrendering the salt-making party, he had apparently lived quite happily among the Shawnees for months. Boone responded by leading a preemptive raid against the Shawnee village of Paint Lick Town on the other side of the Ohio River. All right, Clotter. Clotter, you want to say that Daniel Boone only killed one person? He led a preemptive raid. Preemptive, meaning he invaded them, okay? He just attacked the Shawnee village of Paint Lick Town on the other side of the Ohio River. So Daniel Boone just attacking motherfuckers. He's just attacking villages. They said it accomplished little. The raiding party hurried back to Boonesborough when they discovered that Blackfish had marched south. Negotiations on September 7th, 1778. Blackfish's force arrived outside Boonesborough. Boone counted 444 Native Americans and 12 white men. The former were mostly Shawnees. A number of Cherokees, Wyandottes, Miamis, Delawares, and Mingos were with them. The latter were French-Canadian militiamen from Detroit, former French subjects now fighting on behalf of the British Crown. Although this was the largest force yet sent against the Kentucky settlements, Taking a fortified position like Booneseborough would still be difficult without artillery to reduce the stronghold. Blackfish called Boone out of the prey, or out of the fort, for a parley. Right, it's English term for a parley. Hey, Daniel Boone, come out here. I want to parlay with you, okay? That's what Blackfish said to Daniel Boone. Yo, Daniel Boone, get out here. We're going to parlay. We're going to have a parlay. I'm sorry.